Hello everyone, the Kentucky Patriot here, and there was a question that was asked us in the comments section left by Stephen, which we greatly appreciate him. He's been such a friend of this channel, a subscriber, longtime friend of the channel. I've never actually met him, but I sure appreciate, Stephen, all your comments and support of this channel. But he actually asked a question about fight or flight. And in reading it, it said about the psychology of fight or flight, and he was asking us to respond. And when I told my wife that, I couldn't help but get tickled. I said, the hillbilly psychology. I said, this ought to make for a dandy video. The question is a great question, and it's an absolute real question. And I did have psychology in college. We had to take it. It was a course that was not an elected course. It was a general course. It was mandatory, so I did take psychology, and I know exactly what he's talking about, the fight or flight. And we had it in psychology and also in the real world, and it is a great question. It's 100% real. It's factual, but I just don't know how good of a source I'm going to be. Like I said, I've got Tanner right in there, so if you want something blowed up, I can do it. If you want pumpkins or water jugs shot to pieces, I can do it. But the psychology part may be a little bit out of my league. And even in these videos, I know I use a lot of broken English. And my mom's a school teacher, so I had better upbringing. But it's just I'm a hillbilly and I can't help it. It's just I've always have been and always will be. So even before and after college, it made no difference. I'm still a hillbilly. So. Having said that, when we make our videos, we don't go back and fix broken. If I say something mean something else, or I don't get my words out right, we don't go back and edit and change and redo. And the reason is, this isn't a professional channel, and I want to be more like a neighbor visit. I want to be more like you come over to the house and we're sitting on the porch and just having a heart-to-heart, neighborly, friendly conversation, okay? So having said that, the fight or flight that he was talking about is something that happens to everybody. It's a normal human response, and even in the animal kingdom. And they use the saying, the deer in the headlight look. That's exactly what that is. Something just happened and you've got to make a quick decision. And they call it fight or flight because that's something that goes on in the brain. Do we need to evade and get out of the situation, or do we need to stand our ground? And really that happens in a very quick amount of time. That's why we talk about training. Because if you panic with a deer in the headlight look in a tense situation and you don't know what to do next, you're probably going to make the wrong decision. And like I said, the fight or flight takes place, the adrenaline pumps into the body from the adrenal glands, and your heart rate increases. They say the deer in the headlight look, but that is why your eyes widen, because you're trying to take in as much information as you can. Your mind is trying to process all this, thinking, what's going on, what's happening here. Your breathing is increased, and your fine motor skills begin to, what you could normally do very easily becomes difficult. Okay, and that's why we say what we do about. A lot of times speed reloaders are trying to, that's why I said about the slide release in a previous video about the reloading. It's not that it doesn't work, it's just, are you going to be able to, in the fight or flight stage, to be able to work these little fine motor control skills? Some can. That's what training is for. That's why even civilians that take the CCDW class or whatever, they think, well, that training, that's just, we're not military, we're not law enforcement, we don't need to train. But you do need to train, because we never know when these skills are going to be called upon. And, like we said, we hope we never, ever have to use these or never in that situation, but these situations do happen. So the fight or flight is absolutely real. It happens in your mentally. It happens to real people. And this is like the time that I had to pull my firearm. Afterwards, you get an adrenaline dump. Then when I got my coffee and got back on the interstate, after we was driving down the road, I got what they call the jitters, where you feel a little bit like, what I got to thinking in my mind, what would have happened if I wouldn't have had my gun. Here I am with my wife, here I am with my kids. What could have happened, what would have happened, and you replay that over in your mind, and that adrenaline's in your body, and that's a normal human function. So you need to be prepared for that, need to be aware of that, because things happen extremely fast, and you absolutely get a fight or flight, and your mind needs to process that. And I don't want to sound overly aggressive, like I'm telling you that you should be aggressive in every situation, but the flight a lot of times isn't a choice for people. And I know what some people will say here: if somebody's robbing you, just let them have what they want, and then hopefully they'll be gone. But many times that's not the case, especially like in a home invasion. It may not be just your materials they want. It may be your life. It may be to physically harm. There's rapes that take home, and when you look at the statistics of rapes that happen inside your own home, it's mind-boggling. So the perpetrator may not just be to rob you. And I know one gentleman, I didn't know him personally, but he was at a truck stop one time, and a man pulled a knife on him, and he demanded money. So when the man went back to get his billfold, what he done was pulled a gun instead. The gentleman dropped the knife and took off running. So to be prepared a lot of times, and maybe he would have just took his money, who knows, and it's always best to give him money or whatever. Nothing's worth your life. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But what I am saying is sometimes your money may not be all they want. They could cause harm or to you or your family. So the other part of his statement was about being handicapped or being older, or if somebody's in a wheelchair or a seating position, about a shotgun or a rifle. Well, I don't think a shotgun or a rifle, either one, will be an issue, because if you go, I'm sure if you got any local ranges, but if you go to the range, there's all the times you'll see people in wheelchairs shooting rifles, shotguns, pistols, whatever. So I don't think that's an issue of you being able to handle the firearm. What I would say is an issue, though, if you're in a wheelchair or in a confined space where you can't get around very quickly, would be being able to get to that firearm very quickly. And maybe you can have a way to have it close to you, but if it's not close to you, it won't do you any good. So if you have it available to you, sure, use it. But what really thoughts come to my mind would be a pistol. You can get a big bore revolver. You can get like my grandpa, for instance. When he was younger, of course, times was different. He never carried. But as he got older, that's what he had. He had a .357 Magnum. He didn't try to conceal that gun. It had a long barrel, had big rubber grips on it. But when he would mow his lawn or whatever on the ride mower, he told me out of his own mouth, he said, I'm too old. I'm physically not able anymore to fight. He said, I can't run. I can't get away. I can't get escape. So the fight or flight was taken away from him. He didn't have the option of a flight. It was just be able to defend himself. And even as he got up in years and got feeble, he wasn't confined to a wheelchair, but he couldn't walk very far. He couldn't get around very good. He would just simply take that .357 Magnum gun. That wasn't his carry gun, inside the waistband or anything like that. He wasn't his concealed carry gun, but that was his, gun that he would sit there on his table beside him when he was sitting on the porch. Because like he said, he couldn't run, he couldn't get away, and it had big rubber grips on it, and he would carry it in a holster while he mowed the lawn. And so sometimes the fight or flight options are taken away from a person by their physical condition. But what I would say also, though, whether you're young, whether you're old, whether you're male, whether you're female, you're still going to have these human characteristics of the tense breathing, the adrenaline, your heart racing, your breathing. It's a very traumatic experience. But we need to make sure that we are able to defend ourselves. And what I'm saying is, I really wish from the bottom of my heart I could tell you, if you're a woman and you've got children, or you're an elderly person, or you're a handicapped person, the bad guys, the perpetrators won't bother you. They'll have mercy on you, and you don't have to worry about them. To be honest, it's just the opposite. A lot of times they see an easy target and they think, I'm going to take advantage of this. It is the same thing in nature. If you notice the lions over in Africa, when they chase a herd of zebras, they don't usually get the fastest, so they get the one that's lagging behind, or the one that's weaker, or the one that's straying behind. That's the one they try to prey on. And a lot of times humans are that way too. They'll see somebody looks like they're defenseless. If you get the NRA magazines on the armed citizens, there's a guy that was crippled one time that had a home invasion, and it was a woman, and she was shot back at him. And another one, a guy was in a truck and he was crippled, and he hadn't have a concealed carry. So a lot of times, just because you're handicapped, or just because you're older, or just because you're a woman with a child, there was one, it was in the news a year or two ago, where a woman was pushing a stroller, had a baby in it. But we're living in an age and a time when people just don't care. So you need to be able to defend yourself. So what means would work best for you? It depends on everybody's situation, whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're getting older. the guns. And the reason my papa was very familiar with guns. Like I said, he shot my 454 Casull. He's very healthy, but that 357 Magnum, even you think, well, I couldn't handle the recoil from that. It had a big long barrel. It was a heavy gun, had rubber grips. You can shoot it offhand. Just because it's a 357 Magnum, don't let that scare you. That gun was very manageable, real good rubber grips. Yeah, he had the factory grips too, because those big rubber grips on it made recoil very manageable. So whether you're in a wheelchair, whether you're not able to get around, just to have that sitting by you. I'm still a younger fella, but I carry one with me even in the house. About all the time. I'm in the shower, so I always carry a gun with me, always have one close. So the psychology of a gun, how you would handle that, I think you'll be able to handle it better if you address these situations instead of just thinking, it won't ever happen to me, and then it happens, and then you're unprepared, unaware. So even if you're a civilian, think about what you're going to do. Go to the range and train. Maybe seek a course or two, and seek some tips. But yeah, if you're a older person, I would definitely recommend, a firearm that you are comfortable with. And like I said, if you're comfortable with a shotgun or a rifle, they're at the range all the time with them. So if you can keep it close by, that would be a great tool for you. But really, I do feel like this topic I'm not that great with it, to be honest. I wish I could do it justice. I wish I could do it a little better. But Stephen, I hope that answered your questions or helped you some. If you're not able to get around like you used to, then the flight would be taken away from you. So then you're going to have to then be able to stand your ground. And that is, I think, so important in this day and age, is to be able to defend yourself, even if you don't ever need it, just to have the means and the peace of mind to know I am capable of defending myself and those that you love. So be vigilant, be sober. Just think about what you're going to do and how you're going to act, and don't have the situation arise and you think, what am I going to do now? You want to be prepared, and then when the adrenaline clicks in, you already know what you're going to do. And I'll say this, I'll just throw this out there because I don't want to sound hypocritical, because I do carry a polymer gun a lot of times. I'm a huge 1911 fan, so I don't want to sound like I would be against those, but really, like my papa, if you have a revolver, I think just having a revolver, they're simple to use, they're easy to operate. You don't have to worry about safeties or slides or you can cock the hammer and I think that'd probably be a great tool for you if you're just sitting around the house, or just keep it within hand's distance. Like I said, I don't feel like I've done this justice, but you asked us for our response, so we done our very best, and I hope this helps you. I hope this understands, because like I said, when it happened to us, it happened so fast. We didn't have time to train, we didn't have time to prepare, we didn't have time, because there has never nor ever will be a time when they'll say, well, okay, you not had training, we'll let you go this time. Or they're not going to say, oh, you're a concealed carry permit holder, but you didn't bring your gun today, we'll let you go home and get your gun. That never has or will happen. So you have to be ready at all times to be able to defend yourself. And like I said, we hope it never happens, but these things can happen. They do happen, and if they do, you want to be the one to be able to defend yourself and not the victim. Again, Stephen, I hope this helps you. The Kentucky Patriot isn't much of a philosopher, so so you probably but now Masad Ayoub and those guys, those are pretty neat. And I have heard him talk about in different, I can't reference any points, but I have heard him over the years talk about the fight or flight and the things that take place. So you may want to look up Masad Ayoub and the Lethal Force Institute. He would be a good guy to reference on these kinds of topics. So like I said, I appreciate you. Thank you so much for your comments. Thank you so much. It's very humbling when you ask our opinions and our thoughts. And like I said, I wish I could have done a little better on this, but may God bless you. The Kentucky Patriot signing off.